There is a question that has haunted you for years. You don't ask it out loud. Perhaps you've never put it into exact words. But it's there, beating beneath the surface of your everyday life like a second heart. You feel it when the world falls silent, when you wake before dawn and everything is still, when you look at the night sky and for an instant, the vertigo of immensity brushes your soul. The question is simple, but its weight is immense. Is this all there is? I'm not talking about wanting more things, more successes, more experiences to check off a list. I'm talking about something else. About that persistent intuition that there exists a dimension of reality that remains hidden, a transparent veil covering something luminous. A door you know exists because sometimes in fleeting moments you've seen it crack open. Perhaps it was in a sunset that left you speechless. Perhaps in the eyes of your newborn child. Perhaps in a moment of pain so deep it pierced all your defenses and touched something naked and true. In those moments, the veil thins and you glimpse that there is more, much more. If you're here tonight, it's because you know that thirst, that hunger that isn't satisfied with prefabricated answers or cheap consolations. You've searched in books, in traditions, in conversations that stretched until dawn. You've tried paths that promised much and delivered little. And although you found fragments of truth scattered here and there, like pieces of an incomplete puzzle, the whole picture keeps escaping you. I want you to listen to this carefully. That dissatisfaction is not a flaw in you. It doesn't indicate that you lack faith, or that you're too skeptical, or that you think too much. It's exactly the opposite. That thirst is the clearest sign that your soul is alive and awake. Most people have numbed that thirst with distractions, with routines, with the silent resignation that life is only what appears on the surface. You didn't resign yourself. You kept searching. And that's why you're here. Tonight I want to offer you something different. Not another theory to file away in memory. Not information to debate in intellectual circles. I offer you keys. Ancient keys that have been transmitted in secret for 2,000 years. Keys you can use this very night before you close your eyes to begin opening that door you always knew existed. If you feel this message might be for you, stay, take a deep breath, and allow what comes next to reach not only your mind, but that nameless place where you keep your most sacred longings. Because what I'm going to share with you tonight is not ordinary information. They are keys, real keys that have been guarded and transmitted in secret for 2 millennia. Keys you can use this very night to begin opening that door you always knew existed, but never found how to cross. What I'm going to share with you has to do with a teacher who walked through Galilee 2 millennia ago. His words were so revolutionary, so charged with inner fire, that even today they continue igniting hearts. But much of his most intimate teaching became veiled over the centuries. I'm talking about Jesus, not the Jesus of doctrinal wars or religious divisions. I'm talking about the Jesus who pointed inward, the one who whispered that the treasure we seek is not in any temple of stone, but in the secret sanctuary of the human heart. In 1945, an Egyptian peasant was digging near a cliff in Nag Hammadi when his shovel struck a sealed clay jar. Inside were 13 papyrus codices that had remained hidden for almost 1,700 years. Among them was the Gospel of Thomas, a text that begins with these words. These are the secret words that Jesus, the living, spoke. In that gospel, Jesus says, if your leaders tell you that the kingdom is in heaven, then the birds will get there before you. If they tell you it's in the sea, the fish will get there before you. But the kingdom is within you, and it is outside of you. When you know yourself, you will be known. This teaching is Gnostic in its purest sense. The word Gnosis doesn't mean intellectual knowledge. It's not information you accumulate in memory. It means direct, experiential, transformative knowledge. It's the kind of knowing that forever changes whoever receives it, because it's not something you have, but something you become. And here's what's extraordinary. Jesus didn't just speak about this inner knowledge. He taught precise methods to access it, specific words that function as keys, concrete practices that open doors normally sealed, techniques that the first Christians used and that over time became reserved for increasingly smaller circles until they almost disappeared. In the canonical Gospels, traces of these teachings remain for those who know where to look. When Jesus says, enter your secret chamber and close the door, he's not talking about a room with walls. He's describing an inner space. When he says, "Let whoever seeks not stop seeking until they find, and when they find they will be troubled, and when troubled they will marvel and reign over the all," he's describing the stages of an awakening. Tonight I'm going to share with you 3 words in Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke. 3 words that function as master keys for this awakening. When pronounced correctly, when practiced with sincerity, they activate something that already exists within you but lies dormant waiting to be awakened. They are not magical formulas in the superstitious sense. They are sacred vibrations that resonate with the most intimate strings of your spiritual nature. What I ask is that you listen with an open heart, that you don't rush to judge or compare with what you already know, that you allow something greater than your analytical mind to receive these teachings. Because when these words are understood and practiced consistently, something begins to transform. Not in a spectacular or dramatic way, in a gentle way, silent, but irreversible. Before continuing, I need to tell you something that perhaps no one has told you in these words. If at some point in your life you felt that spirituality was too complicated, that there was a fundamental secret everyone seemed to know except you, that the answers you received didn't touch your true thirst, it wasn't your fault. Listen to me. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't because you lacked faith, or because you were less spiritual than others, or because God had forgotten you in some corner of the universe. What happened is that, over the centuries, the inner teachings were gradually simplified, not out of malice or conspiracy. Experiential knowledge is extraordinarily difficult to transmit through time. It's like trying to describe the exact taste of honey to someone who has never tasted it. You can use every word in the dictionary, but words will never be the taste. And with each passing generation, something more was lost in translation. The first followers of Jesus, those who walked with him and received his teaching from mouth to ear, had access to practices that went far beyond moral norms. They had precise contemplative methods. They had words of power they used in prayer. They had techniques for entering states of consciousness where the divine presence becomes palpable, where the border between the human and the sacred becomes transparent. This is documented. The texts of Nag Hammadi, the writings of the Desert Fathers, the letters of the first mystics speak of these things clearly for those who have eyes to read between the lines. Paul of Tarsus wrote words that still reverberate today. "I no longer live, but Christ lives in me." He wasn't being poetic or using a pretty metaphor for a sermon. He was describing a real experience, a state of consciousness where the separation between the seeker and the sought dissolves, where you discover with amazement and gratitude that what you were desperately seeking outside was always inside, waiting to be recognized. The problem was never God. The problem was never you. The problem is that the map gradually faded. The instructions remained incomplete. The methods were forgotten, and generations of sincere seekers have felt the same frustration you may have felt, intuiting that there is more but not finding the entrance. But here's the good news. The map didn't completely disappear. The keys still exist for those with eyes to see. And the simple fact that you're here, listening to this right now, indicates that your search is already bearing fruit. You're already knocking on the door from within. There is a moment in the life of every sincere seeker when the pieces begin to fit together, when the fragments of truth you had collected along the way start forming a pattern, when coincidences stop seeming random and you begin to perceive a silent intelligence guiding your steps. Perhaps this is that moment for you. Perhaps this video is one of those pieces you were looking for without knowing it. This channel exists to recover those veiled teachings and translate them into a language that works today, to offer not just information, but direct, transformative experience. If this resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Each new video is an opportunity to advance together on this journey, and what's coming in the next few weeks will take you even deeper into this sacred territory. Now we're ready to enter the heart of the teaching. The 3 Gnostic words that Jesus taught, the keys that tonight can begin to open doors you never knew existed. The 3 words I'm going to reveal to you don't belong to any modern language. They are words in Aramaic, the language Jesus spoke in his daily life, the language in which he prayed, the language in which he transmitted the mysteries to his closest disciples, And this matters, because in ancient sacred languages, words don't just communicate ideas. They vibrate, they resonate, they have a sonic quality that affects the entire body, the nervous system, the subtle field that surrounds you. They are sounds charged with intention and spiritual power through millennia of sacred use. The first word is epatha. It's pronounced ephata, letting the sound flow softly from the lips. It appears in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 7. The scene is intimate and powerful. Jesus encounters a deaf man who can barely speak. The crowd begs him to heal him. But Jesus doesn't make a public spectacle. He takes him aside, away from curious eyes. He touches his ears. He looks toward heaven. He sighs from the depths of his being, a sigh that seems to contain all the longing of the universe. And then he pronounces this single word, Ephatha, be opened. The man's ears open, his tongue is freed. He begins to speak clearly. Contemplative masters have always understood that this story operates on multiple levels. On the surface, it's a physical miracle, but at a deeper level, it's a coded teaching about inner opening, because we all carry within us a spiritual deaf and mute person, a part that doesn't hear the subtle voice of silence, a part that cannot express what the soul knows beyond words. Ephatha is the sound that unlocks those sealed channels. When you pronounce it with genuine presence, something begins to open. Something that was closed begins to yield. The second word is Maranatha. It's pronounced Maranatha, with the 4 syllables flowing like a small melody. It appears at the end of Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. For centuries, it was interpreted as an expression of hope in the future return of Christ. But its meaning is much more immediate, much more potent. Maranatha means, "Come, Lord," or "The Lord comes." It's not a request for a distant cosmic event. It's an invocation for the now, for this instant, for this breath. The first Christians used Maranatha as what we would today call a sacred mantra. They repeated it in silence, synchronized with the rhythm of breathing. Inhale, Mara. Exhale, Natha. With each cycle, the divine presence became more tangible. Not because God came from some external place, but because the repetition of the word acted as a key that opened inner perception. Maranatha connects you with what Paul called the Christ who lives in me, that spark of light that already dwells in your center, though normally veiled by the incessant noise of the mind. The third is a short phrase that functions as a sonic unit, Malkuthak Teta Begawach. It's pronounced Malkutak Teta Begawach, letting the syllables flow naturally. It's the Aramaic version of what Jesus said in Luke 17:21, "The kingdom of God is within you." But in Aramaic, the phrase has a force, an intimacy, a density that is lost in any translation. Malkutha means kingdom, but also sovereignty, fullness, complete dominion of the divine. Begawach means within you, in your entrails, almost in the very center of what you are. When you pronounce Malkuthach Tetha Begawach, you're not repeating a doctrine. You're reminding your most intimate being of a truth it already knows but has forgotten. You're activating a knowledge inscribed in the very structure of your spiritual nature. The kingdom is not a future prize. It's not a place you'll go after you die. It's a dimension of reality that exists right now, right here, in the living center of what you are. These 3 words together form a complete path. Ephatha opens the inner senses. Maranatha invokes and makes present the divine light. Malkuthach Tetha Begawach anchors that light in the recognition of the inner kingdom. Together, they are an initiatory sequence. Used consistently, they transform the experience of being alive. You don't need to believe in anything for these words to work. You don't need to belong to any religion or abandon any. You only need to practice with sincerity and consistency. The keys don't ask about your beliefs. They only need you to use them. And when you do, the doors begin to open. In the next few minutes, I'm going to teach you exactly how to practice. But first, I want to invite you to prepare your body and mind to receive these teachings in the most effective way possible. Now I want to invite you to cross a threshold, to take this teaching from the territory of ideas to the territory of the body, because Gnosis is not mental knowledge that gets filed away like data in a computer. It's something you feel in your bones, that lives in every cell. that transforms the very texture of experience. As you listen to these words, begin to notice your body with a new attention. Feel its weight where you're sitting or lying, the points of contact with the surface supporting you, the solidity beneath you, the gravity anchoring you to the earth like an invisible embrace. Notice your feet, even though you're not walking now. The sole of each foot, the toes, the heels. Feel your hands resting wherever they are, the fingers, the palms, the backs. Observe if there's accumulated tension in your shoulders. Many of us carry there the weight of worries we don't even remember. Notice if there's tension in your jaw, in the muscles of your face, in your forehead. Don't change anything yet. Just observe with gentle curiosity, like someone looking at a landscape for the first time. Now notice your breathing without controlling it. The air entering through the nostrils, fresh and subtle, bringing life. The chest expanding like a wave rising, the abdomen lifting, and the reverse movement, the warm air leaving, the chest lowering like a wave returning to the sea, the body releasing a little more with each exhalation. Each breath is a small cycle of receiving and letting go, of living and trusting. Now gently bring your attention to the center of your chest, not the physical heart that pumps blood, but that more subtle space where you feel the deepest emotions, where you feel love when it floods you, gratitude when it overwhelms you, sadness when it visits, joy when it blooms for no apparent reason. The ancients called this place the spiritual heart. In Aramaic, it's called leba. It's the seat of inner knowledge, the gateway to the kingdom Jesus spoke of. Perhaps as you do this, something is already responding. A gentle warmth in the chest like an ember awakening, a sensation of expansion, as if there were more space there than you thought, a tingling in your hands, at the crown of your head, in your forehead, or simply a stillness that wasn't there a few minutes ago. Whatever you notice is fine. Each body responds differently. There's no correct or incorrect experience. Perhaps you also notice that your thoughts have quieted somewhat, that the usual mental noise has lowered in volume, that there's more space between one thought and the next. This is normal. This is exactly what should happen. The body knows how to prepare for the sacred when we give it permission. The Aramaic words I shared with you work better, much better, when practiced from this state of bodily presence. They're not mental formulas you repeat mechanically while the mind wanders. They're living vibrations that need a relaxed body and a quieted mind to do their transformative work. That's why contemplatives of all ages have insisted on conscious breathing, proper posture, outer and inner silence. When you pronounce Father from this space of presence, it's not your everyday voice speaking. It's something more ancient. It's as if the word pronounced itself through you. And when that happens, the opening occurs naturally, without effort, without struggle. The word does the work. This path is universal. It doesn't depend on where you were born, what language you speak, what history you have with religion. The inner doors exist in all human beings. The keys work for all who practice with sincerity. I'd love to know from what corner of the world you're listening to me right now. Write it in the comments. I'm always amazed by the diversity of places from which these connections come. Large, noisy cities, silent towns, countries I know, places I've only seen on maps. And yet we all share this same thirst, this same search, this same longing of the soul to find its origin. Perhaps as you listen to all this, a part of your mind, the skeptical part we all have, wonders, does this have a foundation? Or is it just another interpretation among thousands? These are legitimate questions, and they deserve serious answers. The contemplative dimension of Christianity is not a modern invention to sell self-help books. It's a current that has existed since the very origins of the Jesus movement, documented in texts that have survived 2,000 years of persecutions, wars, and fires. I already mentioned the discovery of Nag Hammadi in 1945. That clay jar contained 13 codices with Gnostic texts from the 2nd and 3rd centuries, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth, the Apocryphon of John. These texts revealed a Christian tradition centered on direct experience of the divine, on transformative inner knowledge, on meditative practices that open consciousness to normally hidden dimensions. In the 4th century, the Desert Fathers and Mothers abandoned the cities of the Roman Empire. and ventured into the burning solitudes of Egypt and Syria to dedicate themselves completely to the inner life. Their teachings, compiled in the Apophthegmata, describe prayer techniques almost identical to those we're exploring tonight. They use short words repeated with breathing to quiet the agitated mind and open the heart. Evagrius Ponticus, one of the most influential, taught that pure prayer is a state beyond words, where the soul unites directly with the source of all existence. In the 14th century, an anonymous English author wrote a small book that would become a treasure of Western mysticism, The Cloud of Unknowing. In its pages, he teaches the use of a simple word, repeated inwardly with love, to pierce the cloud that separates ordinary consciousness from direct experience of the divine. It's the same principle as the Aramaic words. On Mount Athos, Orthodox monks have practiced the prayer of the heart for more than 1,000 years. It consists of repeating a short phrase synchronized with breathing, bringing attention to the space of the spiritual heart. The effects they describe are exactly what we're exploring: mental stillness, luminous inner presence, opening to what they call the uncreated light. In the 20th century, Trappist monk Thomas Keating recovered these traditions and made them accessible to the general public with what he called centering prayer. Today, millions of people practice this method and find in it what Gnosis promises: direct experience, not just belief. The French philosopher and mystic Simone Weil wrote, "Attention taken to its highest degree is the same thing as prayer." She wasn't talking about forced concentration, but about that gentle, receptive presence we've been cultivating, that willingness to receive without grasping, to be open without seeking, to allow the divine to reveal itself in its own time. And modern science confirms what the ancients knew from experience. Neuroscience studies show that contemplative repetition practices produce measurable changes in the brain. They reduce activity in the amygdala, the center of fear and anxiety. They increase connectivity in regions associated with compassion and presence. They induce brainwave patterns associated with expanded states of consciousness and inner peace. Paul wrote in Colossians, "Christ in you, the hope of glory." He didn't say Christ above you watching from on high. He didn't say Christ waiting for you in heaven. He said clearly, in you, inside, already present, already alive. Gnosis is nothing other than direct recognition of this inner presence, and the words Jesus taught are the keys to that recognition. So when a part of you wonders if this is real, if it has foundation, remember, you're exploring territory that has been mapped by thousands of seekers before you. You're using tools that have been tested and refined for 2 millennia. You're not inventing anything new. You're rediscovering something very ancient, something that was always available to those who knew where to look. The time has come to practice. What I'm going to guide you through now, you can do this very night before sleep, in the quiet of your room. You don't need special preparation. You don't need sacred objects. Just a few minutes of silence and the willingness to experience something new. Take 3 slow, conscious breaths. Inhale through the nose, feeling the air filling your lungs. Hold for an instant. Exhale through the mouth, releasing any tension 3 times, without hurry. Bring your attention to the center of your chest. Imagine that there exists a sacred space there, an inner sanctuary that has always been waiting for you. This is the secret chamber Jesus spoke of. It's not in any building, it's in the center of what you are. Rest your attention there. If the mind wanders, don't fight, just return gently. When you feel some stability, begin to pronounce inwardly the first word, Ephatha, not with the external voice, with the silent voice of your interior. Let it arise synchronized with your breathing. Ephatha. Be opened. 7 times, slowly, leaving space between each repetition. Pause. Silence. Observe what happens inside. When you're ready, pronounce the second word, Maranatha. This is an invocation. With each repetition, imagine a gentle light igniting in the center of your chest. Maranatha. 7 times. Slowly, with reverence. Pause. Silence. Notice if something has changed. After the repetitions, release the words. Stay in pure silence. And now comes the most important part, something that changes everything. Don't seek anything. Yes, you heard correctly. After this whole journey, after the words and the practices and the repetitions, the final step is to release even the seeking. Because while you seek, you place yourself in a position of lack. You define yourself as someone who doesn't have what they're seeking. And that reinforces the illusion of separation. The secret the Gnostics kept is this: there is nothing to find that isn't already present. There is no place to arrive that isn't exactly where you are. The practice doesn't create the connection with the divine. It only removes the veils that hide a connection that was never broken. So in that final silence, don't seek mystical experiences. Don't expect spiritual fireworks. Simply rest in what you already are. Allow what has always been true to reveal itself on its own. Your work is not to create the light. Your work is to stop blocking it. This is the great secret the Gnostics protected. There is nothing to achieve. There is no place to arrive. There is no higher self to construct. There are only veils to release, only darkness to allow to dissolve, only a return to what you always were before you forgot it. If you practice this every night, even just 5 or 10 minutes, something will begin to change. Not dramatically at first, but over time you'll notice a greater peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, a clarity that comes not from thinking more, but from thinking less, a sense of being connected to something vast even in the midst of daily chaos. Remember this mantra phrase that summarizes the entire path. The kingdom lives in me. Not the kingdom will come to me. Not the kingdom will be in me someday. Lives now, already, always. I want you to know something as you integrate everything you've received. What you're exploring tonight is not rare or extraordinary. It's not for special mystics or monks in remote caves. It's profoundly human, as ancient as our species and much more common than you imagine. Teresa of Avila, the great Spanish mystic of the 16th century, described her prayer experiences in terms similar to what we've explored. She wrote about an interior castle with 7 dwelling places, where the soul advances toward the center where the divine dwells. Her writings have guided millions of seekers for almost 500 years. John of the Cross wrote extraordinary poems about the inner journey. He described the dark night of the soul as a stage of purification, and the final encounter as a union so intimate that words can barely touch it. Meister Eckhart, the 14th century German theologian, taught that the eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. This idea is at the heart of Gnosis. There is no real separation between the seeker and the sought. Only the illusion of separation that practices gradually dissolve. Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th century abbess, had visions of divine light her entire life. She described them as the shadow of the living light and taught that all human beings can access that light if they turn inward with sincerity. Rumi, the 13th century Sufi poet, wrote, "What you seek is seeking you." Though from another tradition, he describes the same truth. The spiritual search is not one-directional. The divine also seeks us, also longs for us, also calls us. But not only the great mystics know this path. Ordinary people in all ages have had experiences of inner awakening, moments of unexpected grace, instants where the veil parts and something luminous reveals itself. Perhaps you yourself have had experiences like this, a moment of inexplicable peace, a sense of connection with everything, a glimpse of something vast beyond words. Those experiences are not accidents, they are reminders. It's Gnosis touching you gently, whispering that there is more, that the path exists, that the door is open. What we do here is simply systematize what has always existed, give names to the keys, point to the entrance. The inner journey remains yours. No one can do it for you. But knowing that countless people have walked this path gives you confidence. It reminds you that you're not alone. Tell me in the comments which part of this message reached deepest tonight. Which word resonated most? What moment made you feel something? Your comments create community. They create a space where seekers from all over the world can meet, recognize each other, and support each other on this path. There is an ancient story that Gnostic masters told their disciples. It goes like this. A prince was sent by his father, the king, to a distant land to recover a pearl of incalculable value that had fallen into the hands of a serpent. But upon arriving in that strange land, The prince drank the wine of the place and fell into a deep sleep. He forgot who he was. He forgot his mission. He forgot he was a king's son. He began to live like the inhabitants of that land, believing he was one of them, that this limited life was all that existed. But his father never forgot him, and he sent him a letter in the form of an eagle that flew to him and whispered in his ear, "Awaken. Remember who you are. You are a king's son. The pearl awaits you." Upon hearing those words, the prince awoke from his sleep. He remembered his origin. He remembered his mission, and he set out on the path back home. This story, known as the Hymn of the Pearl, appears in the Acts of Thomas, a 3rd century text. And it's your story. It's my story. It's the story of every human being who ever felt there is more, that this can't be all, that there must be something we've forgotten. You are the sleeping prince. The strange land is this world of distractions and forgetting. The wine is everything that puts you to sleep, the constant noise, the worries, the hurry, the belief that you are only this body, only this mind, only this limited life. And the Father's letter, the letter is what you've heard tonight. If you've made it this far, if every word has resonated like a bell within you, it's because you're awakening. You didn't arrive at this video by accident. The letter found you. The eagle whispered in your ear, and something in you is beginning to remember. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "There is light within a luminous being, and that light illuminates the whole world. If that light doesn't shine, there is darkness." You are that luminous being. The light is already within you. The practices only remove what conceals it. The sacred words only awaken what sleeps. The Gnostics called people like you pneumatics, from the Greek pneuma, spirit, divine breath. Those who carry within a spark that doesn't go out, a capacity to perceive what others don't perceive, a thirst for the infinite that no finite thing can satisfy. I don't tell you this so you'll feel superior. None of this has to do with being better than anyone. I tell you so you'll recognize who you are, so you'll stop doubting your perception, so you'll trust that voice that brought you here. You belong to an invisible family that spans the centuries, from the first disciples to today's contemplatives, from the Gnostics of Alexandria to the people who tonight, in different corners of the planet, listen to these words. We all share the same thirst. We all walk toward the same light. We are all princes remembering the way home. And the pearl in the story, do you know what it is? The pearl is your own awakened soul, your consciousness freed from the sleep of forgetting, your true self recognizing itself after so much time lost in strange lands. The pearl isn't somewhere far away waiting to be conquered. The pearl is you, it always was. The serpent that guards it is only the illusion of separation, the dream that you are only this body, only this mind, only this limited life. Tonight the eagle has flown to you. The Father's letter has arrived. The words you've heard are the whisper that says, "Awaken, remember who you are." What you do with this message is your choice. But the message has been delivered, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Once you awaken even a little, you can't fully go back to sleep. We have walked together tonight through sacred territories. You've heard words you may have never heard before. You've received keys that have been transmitted from heart to heart for 2,000 years. You've felt perhaps something you can't name but recognize as true. You don't need to understand it all now. The inner path doesn't work that way. It works through layers that reveal themselves when the soul is ready, through openings that arrive when you least expect them, through moments of clarity followed by silent integration. The path is long, but every step counts. Every night you practice, even just a few minutes, you're planting seeds in the garden of your soul. You won't always see the sprouts immediately. Sometimes it will seem like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, in the fertile silence of your interior, something is growing, something is changing, something is awakening. The only thing I ask is that you don't forget what you felt tonight. Keep these 3 words in the sanctuary of your heart. Practice them before you close your eyes. Ephatha. Open yourself to what has always been waiting for you. Maranatha. Invoke the presence that never abandoned you. Malkuthak Tetha Begawak. Recognize the kingdom that is already yours. And when you need a simple phrase to bring you back to center, the kingdom lives in me. Before I say goodbye, I want to leave you with a blessing. Close your eyes if you can. Receive it not with the mind, but with the heart. May silence reveal to you what 1,000 words cannot say. May your inner ears open like flowers at dawn. May you discover the light you sought in temples and books, shining in the center of your chest. May each breath remind you who you are. May the sleeping prince awaken. May you find the way home. This path is just beginning. What you've received tonight is only the first step. There are deeper doors to open, dimensions of light you haven't yet explored. The pearl still awaits you. And you don't have to walk alone. There is an invisible community of seekers walking with you, even if you don't see them. Each time you practice, you join them. Each time you pronounce the sacred words, your voice joins a chorus that resonates through time. You are part of something much greater than you, and that something greater is also part of you. The video appearing on your screen now will take you to the next level of this journey. I'll be waiting for you there, traveler. Until soon. May your return home be blessed. May each step bring you closer to who you always were.